Raised on anime, working in IT.
We are good to go. So yes, thank you for coming today. My name is David Berg. I am moderating today's session. We have some great presenters today. We have Tomomi, Didier, and Ryan who are presenting what's going to be a great session. There will be time. Hopefully there will be time with our technical issues, but there should be time, a little bit of time at the end for some Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the chat and we can answer them there, or wait until the Q&A section and we'll take it from there. So I'm going to throw it over to Tomomi to start us off.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me okay? All right, cool. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to this session. I'm so excited to see everyone in this room and also online. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Tomomi Imamura. I'm the Enterprise Cybersecurity Architect working for the CTO's office at DoIT.
An anime girl with a calico kitten text, Tomomi's story.
So for those who do not know me, I was born in Japan, raised in Japan, and growing up watching anime. And I came to the United States in 1998. So, my entire, childhood was in Japan. So I was 5 years old and at that time, and watching anime all the time because it was part of my life. And group of us kids just talk about anime episodes we watched yesterday, and those talking about episodes among the friends helped me build social connections among us, and we created a shared generational identity. And these anime gave me early exposure to complex themes like meaning of life, what it means to be human, tragedy of war, and personal growth. And so it's a really interesting experience as being a kid in Japan. And tech career. So I am working at DoIT, and I'm in cybersecurity, working in the technology area. And interestingly, my sister, my younger sister who lives in Japan, she had multiple career switches happen, but she works in IT field today as well. So she's a computer graphics special effects artist working for a 3D computer graphic animation studio in Tokyo. And so, us growing up in Japan, watching anime every day, I think long-term, our generation later contributed to spreading anime worldwide.
Japan in 70s and 80s.
So back in 70s and 80s, when I was growing up, it was called the anime's golden expansion era. It was sort of a crazy time. And growing up watching these anime.
List of films.
I listed up on the right-hand side of the screen. It's more like, I don't know, a lot of being a kindergartner watching these complex, some of them are war-themed anime. So shooting, fighting, killing, all kinds of horrible things were happening in this anime, and no parents cared about it. Nobody cared about the content. So there's no standards, censorship back then. So it was kind of crazy time. And third one from the top, Mobile Suit Gundam, for example, that was my go-to anime. So it's a story of war between Earth Federation and the Zeon Principality, who declared independence from Earth. And so there are a lot of robots show up in this anime. And so roughly 60 feet tall, and maybe about weighs 40 tons. This is my guess. But so those robots are so popular. And I brought this example of a plastic model that kids used to buy these box of plastic models, comes with 200 pieces, and you put them together and create a scale of 1 to probably 144th size of plastic models, and that became a so popular thing and created a phenomena in Japan. But me being a girl in Japan, and these things are marketed for boys, so I never get to play with it. Being a girl in Japan and then playing with that, you're weird. So, but I was so excited to see this in this country. I happened to go to this toy store or a hobby shop in Milwaukee area, and I saw these, and then finally I got to, I got to play with it. So that was pretty good. So yeah, that's something I started working on these days. And then let's see, so otaku subculture, which means a geek or nerd in English. And so in the 90s, this was becoming so popular. So strong foundation of that was created in 70s and 80s.
Text. Future science and technology.
And many of the anime I watched gave me exposure to, robots and space travel, fantasy, and these helped expand my curiosity towards, engineering, mechanical storytelling, science and technology. So
Anime characters.
And then Doraemon, I have a picture on this screen. So this is a story about a robotic cat who came from the future. And then helps a boy by using various futuristic gadgets. So, he can pull out those things out of his front pocket, and the boy get to use those futuristic gadgets, but also, he learns lessons. So go through painful experience. And so, I learned innovation and imagination, but at the same time, I also learned over relying on convenience results in, regrets and failure. So that was a good lesson I learned.
Leadership.
And many of the anime I watched left me huge impression on me how to lead others. So these characters, strong female protagonists, some are very culture shaping characters, and featured girls and women. So I like to see these, female characters being main people in this anime, which I didn't see many in real world when I was in Japan. So especially the Studio Ghibli, Hayao Miyazaki from 1984, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. So it's a story about post-apocalyptic world, and suddenly a cargo airplane emergency landed in her village, and that starts unwanted conflict. But then Nausicaa tries to stop conflict and understand the ecosystem around her, and she was a leader who can be kind and furious at the same time, and she leads by examples. And so I learned doing the right thing is important.
Imagination. Space colonies some a green park inside a huge spaceship.
And this is my last slide. And so this is the picture from Gundam. And this is a space colony. So as I said, Zeon Principality was declared independence from Earth, and they were living in this kind of a space colonies. And the idea that was described within the anime was basically this cylinder shape space colony spins and creates gravity, so people can live inside. And so, so this Zeon Principality was hiding behind the moon, and so recent NASA Artemis 2 successful, flyby moon was kind of okay. I'm connecting to my childhood imagination to the reality, so I'm kind of excited about that. All right, I'm gonna pass this on to Ryan.
Can you hear me? I'm sure you can. I'm relatively loud. I'm Ryan Levitt, cybersecurity engineer with the cybersecurity program and business systems.
Brian's story.
A little bit about me, my coming of age, different than Tomome's. Oh, quick slide deviation from my slides. Tomome and I, it was probably 15 years ago now that we kind of started our working relationship and friendship, and anime was one of the springboards into that. And this is just another example of anime bringing people together. If you asked me 15 years ago if I'd be standing here next to the CIO presenting on anime, I'd be like, no, that's not going to happen. But here we are. And being in cybersecurity, I'd much rather meet the CIO this way than reporting on some incident that's going on. So this is the preferred method. So coming of age in the mid to late 90s in a small farming community, I was like a secret agent in a world of flannel and corn. This will probably come as a surprise to some of you, and especially those of you that know me. I was a bit of a weird kid. Anime, however, as I got older, got into my teen years, anime was kind of that springboard into finding my community, especially things like Ghost in the Shell, Akira, Cowboy Bebop. It definitely brought us together. It brought that curiosity of technology, those thought kind of processes and thinking about what all that stuff meant, especially when it was still kind of the early stages. And a lot of the stuff that was talked about in Ghost in the Shell, for instance, is happening today. It was a pretty accurate movie as far as technology and kind of what it looks like and what the future of that is.
The poster from Ghost in the Shell. Text, Ghost in the Shell, a glimpse into the future.
So Ghost in the Shell, that was kind of one of a huge impact for me. And still to this day, it teaches me some lessons in diversity for sure. There's a line that always caught me in that movie, and I still watch the movie and apply that line even to this day when I'm thinking about things and working in different teams. To quote the movie, if we all reacted the same way, we'd be predictable. There's always more than one way to view a situation. What's true for the group is also true for the individual. It's simple, over-specialize and you breed in weakness. It's slow death. I've always liked that line because it emphasizes kind of being an individual and making sure you speak your own ideas because they might not be what everyone else is thinking, but that's how we progress and move forward. So I kind of embrace that difference, and it's great to have that and have dynamics in the team. It taught me a lot about security concepts, the whole ghost hacking, and what did that mean? Using old exploits to mask or decoy, which they did in the movie, that happens today. Like, I'm going to run this old attack while the true menace is happening while you're worried about putting out this other fire. And then technological singularity was kind of represented in that movie. They say it's years away. I say, well, I don't know, is it? Like, if everyone's phone turned off today and there was no internet, would we be fine? Like, I don't know. I think it would freak some people out.
The future is here.
Moving on. Oh, this is just a sidetrack from anime, I guess, but I put this up here. It was relevant. And the quote from the movie, and where does the newborn go from here? The net is vast and infinite. This image is from the Opt project. If you're not familiar, go check it out. Really cool. He maps the entire internet. I say the future is here. This image is actually from 2003. There is a new one out there. I happen to prefer the way this one looks. But it's a whole mapping of the internet, all the IP spaces, all the colors represent different countries. It's cool stuff. Check it out.
The warning for technological breakthrough.
Akira, that was another impactful one to me. It felt like definitely a warning sign for technology, almost, for technology pacing and technological decay, the bioengineering going wrong. So they were working on these children that had these kind of powers, but they didn't understand what they meant, which is why Japan initially exploded. And then they decided to meddle again. I think a lot of this can even be applied to AI of what does this mean? Are we getting the cart in front of the horse, so to speak? We've got all this investment into the future, but we're not investing in what the moral compass and what do these things mean. So that movie always spoke to me as just make sure you pump the brakes once in a while, look at the bigger picture before you get excited about jumping into something. Not to say no to it, but think critically about it. And then cybernetic aesthetics in that movie were all over the place. So in technological decay, referencing the big city skyscrapers. And when you got to the street level, it was impoverished. They were running around on rad motorcycles, but in clubs and up to no good debauchery, basically.
Cowboy Bebop.
And then my final slide here, another impactful movie or TV series was Cowboy Bebop. They had information warfare, particularly episode 23, Brain Scratch, the Migrate to Electronics movement. That was great. It was about a sentient AI that was starting a cult. If you haven't seen that episode, it's great. It's super entertaining. Right. Cybernetic enhancement in that show gave you a thought to, and Ghost in the Shell was very, I'm going to enhance myself. And Cowboy Bebop, it was very, I lost my arm. I need to wear this metal thing now. So is what does that look like? And then it had a very decentralized infrastructure because they had gates to pass through to different worlds. They kind of got all broken. That kind of fragmented everything and isolated everyone to have their own networks. I don't want to talk too much about decentralized infrastructure, but I don't think I need to. That's my little spiel. I'm going to hand this mic over to DDA now.
Thank you, Ryan. And Tomomi, arigato gozaimasu. Thank you so much for bringing us together with Ryan and I to talk about this. So Didier Contis, CIO. Some of you may have guessed, right? I grew up in a very small city in the south of France, 13,500 students. And around the age of, when I was around, 4 or 5, anime became my jardin secret, my secret garden. This is around the time I had a lot of allergies, kind of developed asthma, could not go outside, could not play soccer, rugby, became a little bit kind of that weird kid that could not go outside, became a little bit ostracized. And anime kind of helped me change myself. It's like, hey, I'm being inspired. I'm, becoming curious about technology. Maybe it's playing sport that I cannot do anymore. Let me focus on math, on physics. Let me pursue STEM because I want to do things. I want to build technology. So that really kind of, played that role when I was very young to set myself on the path to become an engineer and then go into IT.
UFO Grendizer.
1978, in France, we had 3 TV channels, right? 1, 2, 3. July 1978, first Japanese anime becomes to be broadcasted in France. UFO Grendizer by Nuko Nagai, Goldorak. That was special. That was, first of all, the first Japanese anime we had really of that kind in France, but it also started to play a role at a time that, as a kid, I was kind of down, right? And so at a personal level, that anime started to have themes around, resiliencies and adaptability. It's a story of, an alien, Siegfried, that escaped his planet that was destroyed by an invading overrace of aliens, Vega Empire, and he escaped by stealing that robot that was initially designed to destroy, and he basically take refuge on Earth and use that robot to protect. And so at a personal level, that was kind of, developing that sense of, hey, I'm going to be okay. I can just adapt. I can move forward. But also like the theme about technology can be used to protect. Right? Technology that's designed to attack can be used to protect. Technology can be used as hope. When you're a kid, it's like, yeah, I don't get all of this, necessarily, concept, but that means something. And it's also like, I didn't want to have a robot to protect. I wanted to build a robot. Mm-hmm. I remember there was a magazine printed about, Goldorak Grendizer, and they had that kind of, fake plan about a robot, and I was like, I want to do that. And I asked my parents, can I get tools? Can I get, screwdrivers and everything? I thought I could build a robot. Never did it, but it was really kind of inspiring. And then in 1980s, there was that also very impactful, probably the most impactful anime for me, right? I'm wearing the t-shirt, is Albator in French, Space Pirate Captain Harlock by Leiji Matsumoto. And it's a different story. The story about the space pirate is kind of, exiled by the Earth Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, your technical problem. So again, need to watch the film. So, this is a space pirate who is kind of, being exiled from Earth because, it's trying to protect Earth from an invading, alien species. And, the complacency of the Earth government says, no, you're wrong, go away. And so it's still set on journey to protect Earth using its, massive spaceship, the Arcadia. And what's really interesting is that, as a kid, you have these values, this sense. It's like, it's okay to not be like anyone else, like everybody else, right? It's okay to be independent. It's okay to stand by your values. And that was important. And I carry that with me, many times, standing my ground, being independent and standing by my values, especially when you have to face a researcher, a very important researcher that says, I need you to do this. And that goes against so many rules, right? That being able to stand up pressure is sometimes very important. It also set more curiosity, spaceship, Earth, right? Exploration of space, really cool. And finally, I will always remember that first scene, a big, massive computer in a spaceship. And when you're a kid, 6, 7, you don't understand what a computer is, but it looks very cool. What does it mean? That thing in a room that can control or help control basically the spaceship. And oh, by the way, that computer seems to have a mind of its own, right? There was not called AI. I want to do that. So that gave me a lot of inspirations to become an engineer. Now, one Japanese anime that is very, or maybe more relevant these days, is Astro Boy by Osamu Tezuka, 1984 in France. So original anime was, I think, broadcasted in Japan in the 1960s. In France, we had like a new version that was, color versions. 1984. And a story of a father, right, Dr. Tenma, that, lost his son, his young boy's son, and out of grief, he created a robot that is actually, a boy robot. That also is kind of, having some level of consciousness, right? And I didn't necessarily understand all of these themes at the time, but you have this theme, which are very relevant about, human technology trust. Think about this morning, right? The keynote from Patrick McDaniels, that trust into technology. And there is some scene, in some of the first episodes of Astro Boy where he wants to play with kids, with human kids, but human kids are scared of him. Yeah, you look like a robot. Like a boy, but you're a robot, right? How can we make sure you're not being heard? And so this human technology / trust relationship is very important. Also, some deep insight about, effects. Just because you can create something using technology doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. A lot of the initial episode of Astro Boy talks about that, right? Was it okay for Dr. Tenma to create that robot that looks like, a boy, that looks like the son he has, lost? And then you have also some deeper meaning. In one episode, Astro Boy is framed as, having done something bad, and there is an order to shut him down. And there is that scene where someone is preparing to remove the, energy core of Astro Boy. And it's like, are you shutting down a machine or are you killing something? I was less than 10, but still to these days, that scene remained. And so today I see a reference to this, Japanese anime, when we start to have deeper discussion about ethics, use of technology, right? What is identity, autonomy when it comes down to technology? And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Ryan.
Thank you, DDA.
Firewalls, vastnet and complexity.
Just a quick slide about just thinking about the past. Talking about Ghost in the Shell, the manga came out in 1989. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, way ahead of its time. You think about the first computer worm written in 1971 being Creeper. later known the Morris worm in 1988, was more notable for kind of the destruction it did. 24 hours, 6,000, approximately 60,000 connected to the net. Think about that in today's standard, 60,000 connected to the net. It's hard to believe where we are now. I think we had 60,000 here and then some. The World Wide Web, invented in 1989, Ghost in the Shell in 1989, again, ahead of its time. The widespread government espionage is rampant in Ghost in the Shell. Clifford Stahl wrote a book called the Cuckoo's Egg? Yes, there's my slide. Talks about kind of one of the, I suppose I don't want to say it is the first, but it's debatable, one of the early encounters of espionage on the internet, where it started out as an accounting error, turned into him tracking down Mark Hess from Germany, who was selling secrets to the Soviet Union. Pretty interesting. And then a kind of quick note on firewalls, talking about Ghost in the Shell brought a lot of this up too. They had different terminology, be it protection barriers, attack barriers, labyrinth barriers, substitute barriers, where you had standard firewalls for the protection barriers, attack barriers, where in the movie they would try to, if a hack was occurring, they tried to trace it back and then burn out that attacker as it was being traced back. That was always, I'm getting stuck on my words now. I'm stuck. I always like that. That was always an interesting concept in the movie. The way they approached firewalls was way ahead of its time, because in 1990s we had the first gen with packet filtering firewalls, stateless. Early 2000s, second gen, stateful. And now we're up to fourth gen with machine learning firewalls. That movie was kind of talking about stuff like that way back in 1989, which is pretty fascinating on what it was able to predict for the future.
The woman walks on a blue web in space. Text, prediction about AI, present.
So I'm gonna talk about prediction about AI. So how many people think the evolution of AI in recent years are kind of crazy? Yep. So Didier talked about Astro Boy. That's from the 60s, and that's a story about robot with human-like emotions. And so the story explores complex themes like nature of humanity, prejudice against robots, and Ryan also talked about Ghost in the Shell. And in the Ghost in the Shell, there's the puppet master is an AI. And it's a criminal hacker, and it was created based on the sea of information. So it's describing this AI back in 80s already. And in this anime, Ghost in the Shell, the law enforcement or officials created a special anti-puppeteer attack barrier. So, like puppet master based on AI criminal, and then they're creating an anti-puppeteer attack barrier. So it's like today, we're in cybersecurity, like me, IT professionals trying to protect our data from criminals, and cyber criminals with AI-based hacking is happening. And at the same time, cyber defense people like us with AI-based security tools. So Cisco, Palo Alto, they're all coming up with AI-based cyber defense tools. So it's representing today's prediction about AI. So I'm going to pass this on to Didier to talk about future.
So a word of warning, we're going to go to the deep end of the pool because we're going to talk about anime and the futures, right? And sorry, Tomomi. And so when we talk about the futures, and as CIO, I'm being asked sometimes sort of questions of what should we expect in 5, 10 years, which feels to me like an eternity. I like to refer to William, Gibson, the author of The Neuromancers, that has that phrase: "The future is already here; it's not just evenly distributed." So when I think about the future, sometimes I like to go back and watch this old, Japanese anime, and tie that to signals of things that are starting to emerge from a technology perspective. And so we thought it would be interesting to talk about 3 types of things that may impact us from an IT perspective. One is, the cybernetic augmentations. The concept is not new. It's not just in the Japanese anime, right? You had that movie. We had it also in France, the $6 Million Man, where portion of, part of the body is being kind of replaced by some electronic component or some, prosthetics, right? That's not new, but we keep seeing more and more signal, right? Whether it be, invasive, I will say, cybernetics augmentations, where you basically have something which ties to your nervous systems, or it is actually external augmentations. And so we're probably going to see at some point in some research lab, some external augmentations because, someone needs to do something and do some heavy liftings and are going to have that, external cyber suit, which is going to be connected, of course, to the network. So it's kind of interesting to see all of this development, right? I think Unitree from China had, some kind of, humanoid robots that you could go inside, right? Bigger, that looks like Gundam. So all of these movies, Gundam, Cyborg 009, Ghost in the Shell, Galaxy Express, which talk about that, biological augmentation, is kind of interesting to keep in mind. And then there is what is even more scarier, which is the brain cyberizations, right? So now you move from the body to actually the brain. So in Ghost in the Shell, they talk about the brain cyberizations where you replace portion of, the biological piece of the brain with, machinery, electronics, right? But you go to up to 80% because you need to retain 20% of the biological matter of the brain to retain kind of the essence of a person, what they call about a ghost. And then you have everything about, the BCI, brain-computer interface, where, in that picture, you see one of the character of, Ghost in the Shell, that plug at the back of the brain, there is like a jack, kind of like, in the Matrix, to the net, right? Okay. Has anyone seen or, keep up with the development of Neuralink? Okay. So that's a signal. And then, there is more and more, development where we keep, as human beings, wearing things that track us, right? Whether it be a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, Oura Ring, AirPod, stuff like that. So that kind of convergence keeps happening. I just don't want to have something at the back of my brain, right? Because cybersecurity means I don't want to be hacked, like you see by playing Ghost in the Shell. And then, the other signal I want to point, right? And so Tomomi already talked about it, that distributed intelligence, right? That, so basically you have, it's not just one thing, it's multiple things spread and it becomes sentient. It can be Skynet, it can be basically the puppet master and Ghost in the Shell. And we have this thing this year that started since December called agents, right? The AI agents. How many of you have heard about OpenClaw? Okay. And you probably have heard stories about, someone having some mishaps with their implementation of OpenClaw, and it ran from, destroying their inbox to they go and decided to make tiny pull requests on the GitHub repositories. And when the pull request is denied, the AI agent decide to just dox basically the GitHub maintainers. This is real. You can just look it up, right? And now you start to think about, that could never happen in 10 years to become the next puppet master. So it is kind of, when you have to think about the futures, Japanese anime, especially the genre of cyberpunk, has been really inspiring for me to think about the future, sometimes in a scary way. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Tomomi.
All right, thank you, Didier. Let's see.
Discussions. A QR code appears on the right.
discussion time. So we have 3 questions to the audience. So if you, so we have a QR code to the Padlet and also a URL to the Padlet. So please use the Padlet to post your answers, or feel free to speak up. So first question, what anime influenced you? Second question, what anime had the most impact on who you are today? And then the third question, what is your bucket list anime you want to watch?
I have the mic. So if you want to, answer the question, I have the mic, so just raise your hand.
Hello, my name's Gavin. I think, well, to answer the first one, what anime has influenced you? One that I think like modern, very similarly to the concepts you guys are talking about is, you said Cyberpunk Edge Runners is an anime that came out recently. I think the whole Cyberpunk universe is like very, it doesn't feel unrealistic in the direction that technology is moving, where it's not as much of a utopia as it is maybe like a stuff got out of hand and now everyone's just trying to survive. You need cybernetic enhancements in order to live, to like operate day to day. You order subscription services for your healthcare, like stuff like that. That might be like a scarier side of the future, but that's a show that I watch regularly because I think it is like sort of closely tied to like stuff that's happening. I mean, you say you watch Ghost in the Shell and you start seeing how that's happening nowadays, and it was created back in the 90s, and this is stuff that's created now, and it's already starting to unravel in a similar way. I think that's like kind of an interesting one if no one's seen it to watch. But yeah.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? And it's, kind of fun to watch the Padlet, right? It's like, Ghost in the Shell, Evangelions. Wow, so many names. Anyone else wants to?
The list of people's answers to the questions appears. It continues to populate as people answer.
Thank you. So my name is Mary. I'm from Research Cyber Infrastructure on campus. And what is really kind of taking my interest is the generation of anime. So I did not grow up with technology in space. I grew up with all the individuals who had superpowers, who were the chosen ones. And so then I think, okay, how did that influence my generation versus someone who grew up with space exploration and wanting to go into robotics?
Thank you. Great feedback. So Tomomi, how would you feel about maybe commenting on, what you see on the Padlet? And anyone else wants to, if you raise your hand, I'll also bring the mic.
Yeah, this is cool. I see so many answers coming in, and oh yeah, Akira, and yep, I watched Spirited Away. That was another movie I really liked. Go ahead, Nathan.
I watched a lot of anime in college. Nathan Delano, cybersecurity analyst, LNS. For me, it was always the tech was always really cool in all of these. And it was a tool and it was fun to play with, and you could do all kinds of things with it. But then at the end, it was always teamwork and relationships that ended up like, bringing everything together.
Yeah, thank you.
Great comment, Nathan, especially, when you look at and tying back to the comments from Ryan, in Ghost in the Shell, right? And the diversity also of the team was very important. Anyone else? Great discussion so far. This is fun.
Dave.
Hi, Dave Perez, SMPH. I didn't get into anime until later in life, but what I had, which still addressed a lot of these same things that I had growing up, was Star Trek. Star Trek had cyborgs, had augmented people. There was space exploration, different organizations, different groups, different races, I guess would be the word to use there. Different peoples. And just the way that they explored it while you three were presenting, I was able to connect a lot of that to what you were saying. And I just think that's very interesting that while anime was harder to access here while I was growing up, the same themes were in Star Trek.
No, this is a great observation. And I would say, for me, in France, we did not have Star Trek as early. And so I did not necessarily got that same influence, right? So great point. Anyone else from the audience? Yeah.
DDA behind.
Oh, sorry. You go, Eric.
Well, a lot of anime has been exciting about the possibilities of technology. There's a show I think back to that really formed a lot of my skepticism and distrust of technology, and that is The Prisoner, a show written largely by Patrick McGowan, that asks the question, what happens to the world when, for better or worse, we're united into a single global village by surveillance technology, by computers, by behavior manipulation?
No, great point, Eric, and very relevant to today's, I would say. Oh, yeah.
Thanks. So I'm about to turn 50. And I remember when I was a kid in Waukesha on Channel 8 in Milwaukee, all of those cartoon shows that were on after school were actually done by the same studios that were making these movies, like Thundercats, Silverhawks, Voltron, Transor Z. Those shows, like that was our childhood. And so, I mean, anime is sort of baked into the cake, which I always thought was kind of funny that a lot of that stuff doesn't get mentioned in conversations like this.
Funny, I was wondering about, anime was, I was growing up in Japan, so this was a part of my everyday life. So I was curious how, I had no idea anime was so popular in this country until I met Ryan. And so I was so curious how people in this country get to, into anime. So yeah, it's very interesting.
In the late 90s, it was funny because it was either like word of mouth or just, I don't know, you mentioned geek community. It helped to be involved in the geek community because if you didn't know what someone else did, or if your zines, if you knew about zines or magazines, easier than zines, but.
For me and my friends, it was Toonami on Cartoon Network. So you got Dragon Ball Z and a whole bunch of other anime back when they called it Japanimation, which sounds kind of like a slur to me, but yeah, that was the footprint in.
So what's great about the conversations, right, is that, for us, Tomomi, Ryan, and I, what got us into technology, what got us into, IT, what, shaped who we are today was Japanese anime. But what I appreciate is some of you, sharing, what has inspired you, what has shaped you. And so all of that feedback is really good to hear because there is not one path that shaped us. Any other, I don't know how we're doing in time, any other comment or anyone wants to raise their hand and share?
M. Craft from WID. I think that anime was sort of the natural progression from playing Dragon Quest games on the Nintendo. But yeah.
Good to know. Thank you. Yeah, my mother who lives in Japan, she's 77 years old and she watches Demon Slayer and she tells me the story of the anime. So yeah.
So as somebody who doesn't, like in my actual job title, work in cybersecurity, but two of you up there are cybersecurity people. Is there a particular connection you found speaking with other cybersecurity analysts? I know Nathan sitting next to me is also in cybersecurity. Is there a particular connection with anime and cybersecurity that you found, like all of your coworkers, your cybersecurity coworkers? Have you found that the majority of them like anime as well?
A good question.
I think it's a bit of a mixed bag, but more of them yes than no. I was thinking about that just while just looking out onto the room too. It's very, I don't know, it's a geek culture thing, I think, to some degree. But in cybersecurity, yeah, we're very, especially like Ghost in the Shell, just because there's a lot of relevant kind of hacking concepts that are happening in that movie. But I'd say it's a little mixed. I have a few
So-
coworkers that don't know much about it, and then some that are like me.
So maybe one aspect, right? So, a lot of so when you look at Japanese anime, there are various different genre type of, anime. You have isekai, you have cyberpunk. Cyberpunk as a type of science fiction is not unique to Japanese anime, right? The Matrix is one example. Johnny Mnemonic, all the work. And flashing light. I'm breaking everything today. So, CIO speak too much, microphone runs out of battery. So, what I would say is, I think maybe a question, Zach, is to talk about what type of science fiction is sometimes bringing us together. So, in cybersecurity, I would say maybe it's more cyberpunk, independent if it's traditional science fiction, cyberpunk, or the subgenre of Japanese anime that may be bringing people together in cybersecurity. Think about the Matrix.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily need a mic.
People online. The people.
Okay. Yeah. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I'm going to. Is there any of you in here that want to raise your hand? If you've never watched an anime, are you going to now? Are you going to check one of these out? Is there anyone that hasn't seen any anime? And has this piqued your interest to at least give one a shot? Yeah, neat.
How we doing?
You can put 7 minutes.
Okay. So is there like, sorry, anyone else who wants? Oh.
I have a quick question. Okay, so I would love to watch more anime, but when I was younger and I was watching it, I was on very sketchy websites. Is there a better way to watch anime? Potentially with subtitles?
So I'm not going to be making any kind of, advertisement, but I will say that, probably what has been very different is that you have a lot more streaming, right? Thank you to the internet. And so now, I think anime doesn't some of the stigma.
Came over.
It's flashing.
How many more of these do we have in our
No, it's green. So it's getting out of range. I think it's getting out of range over there. So I would say that, streaming services, right, will let you watch anime and you can select, thank you to technology, the audio and the subtitles. And you don't necessarily need to have a specialized, I pay for a specialized subscription, but you don't need one, right?
So I have a question. A lot of the anime that was talked about today was from the 70s and 80s. And they were very prescient on some of the things that we're dealing with now. Are there any current anime that you know of that you're like, ooh, maybe that's looking at something in the future that we're going to be dealing with?
That Cyberpunk Edge Runners is very much like that. Like I was saying. Yeah.
So how about you speak into the mic?
No, it's just like I said earlier, the Cyberpunk Edge Runners is like very much that concept, and the video game too is like that. It's you just play out essentially in the city, in Night City. It's really good. Like, yeah.
So I'll say, I think Zach, you were next, right? I'll say that this has we decided to speak about the anime that influenced us. Some of the most recent anime that will go, I think, Eric, you're talking about, impact of society and technology, right? Surveillance. So Psychopath would be one of them that is more recent. I would say I tend to see on some of the streaming services more isekai, which means you're being reincarnated in the world. I like also maybe Sword Art Online, which is basically, you kind of have that VR headset, which kind of interface with your brain and capture you in the VR world, and you have to escape. So that one is also more recent.
I was just going to say.
Okay, so Zach, you were also going to say Sword Art Online. Okay, so Brad.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's mentioned Serial Experiments Lane. Very futuristic tech anime that, to me, kind of talks about where we are today, and that was from earlier in the century, I believe.
So, one of the things that we've been comparing between Tomomi, Ryan, and I is, the body of anime, which actually are based on manga, is really vast. And we don't necessarily see or have had the opportunity to watch them depending on which countries we were. So. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And I'm glad to see everybody in this room and online. Thank you so much for all the discussion and the conversation with us.
Thank you, everyone.
The 9 images of the 3 presenters as children, along with their names and email addresses.
Thank you for attending today's session. And we look forward to seeing you all in the next session. Also want to do a special call out once again. We do have a booth set up by the room 1527 over yonder. That is a selfie station. Relive how things were 10 years ago with things like Pokemon Go, which came out 10 years ago, which is crazy to think about. Enjoy the rest of today. Thanks, everyone.
I feel like I'm terrible picture.